That's a big component now to employee retention. It's not just looking at the employee and saying, do you have the skill set? Do you have the personality that fits our organization, works well within our organizational culture? And you know what? It's okay if you don't have all the skills that we need, that we can teach.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakhiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Dr. Heidi. She is a business psychologist, a professor, a speaker, a best-selling author, and today we're going to talk about that and much more. And Dr. Heidi, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. So happy to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm checking you out. I see you got a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and you're definitely the right person to speak with business psychology about. But maybe can you tell us a little bit more about yourself before we get into everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background prior to getting into higher education 15 years ago, I started on early career working in finance and accounting. And after that, I moved into healthcare. I was in the Department of Psychiatry at Boston Medical Center for about 10 years. Absolutely hit burnout at that point. It was horrific. I was like one of those moments in life, I surrendered the white flag and I said, I don't know where to go from here. Like, is this it? And really had to kind of work through that, identify things to put in place that made sure that if I ever hit those moments again, that I knew better how to deal with it, work my way through it. And that's when I decided to make my transition into higher ed. And that's where I've been for the last 15 years. Absolutely love teaching, seeing the aha moments. I teach undergraduate, graduate students, doctoral students. It's just absolutely amazing. And through that time, I decided that I wanted to get out and share my voice beyond the classroom. Because one of the things that I feel that brings a little bit of uniqueness to my classroom is I don't just teach the theory, I bring the practical applications to the classroom. So if we do projects, I connect with companies and the students actually work on the projects that they actually hand off to the companies. So it's a little way to give back, but then they also know that their work is a little bit more meaningful and productive. And I just think it's incredibly important, whether you're working out in a traditional organization, a multinational corporation, or a small nonprofit, that you understand the theory and where things come from and how it builds up. But it's also important for the students to understand those practical applications and how to use it and see it come to life. And so stepping beyond the classroom was really important for me. And so now I'm working a lot on speaking on different stages, trying to work on a project within the higher ed program to help bring something to market that's a little bit more affordable for people, because higher education has skyrocketed in terms of cost and it's almost unattainable for some people at this point. And I'm also very passionate in the nonprofit small business space, helping them grow and be successful. And then also projects in the mental health space, bringing together traditional and non-traditional modalities for treatment, because right now there's a lot of non-traditional modalities that are fantastic and there's a lot of traditional, but there's very few that are really working in true unison. And I feel that the two coming together really helps. And also there's such a need in that particular segment. I don't know how it is in your area, but here where I live in Massachusetts, it can take up to 3 years for someone to get in to see even like if you need a child psychologist, and if you need a psychologist for an adult, minimum is usually a year waiting list, and sometimes it can be up to 2 years. And it's just an oversaturated area and desperate need of something a little bit different.
100%. 3 years is the number. When you were saying that, I was thinking for the child psychologist in our area, 3 years. So yes. You got it right on, same thing. And obviously this is a mix of COVID, maybe social media, consumer Amazon society, all of the above mixing together. And you see it at all different ages. It doesn't seem to matter. Like a kid I knew, he's 36 years old, just took his life a couple weeks ago, and it's the same thing. He was the most outgoing guy, and I remember he would always say, "You'll never see me do that," right?
Yeah.
But you take away someone's freedom, and I don't know how it was. I know America was less than here, but here was like ridiculous. Lockdown. Some places in Canada had almost martial law.
Yeah.
The police were allowed to walk up to people and just ask them anything, and it was really bad, right?
Yeah.
And so
here in the U.S., it depended on where you lived. Each state handled it differently. But here in Massachusetts, we had pretty much what you're describing to a certain degree. We had a lot of lockdown, and we were one of the last states to kind of reopen, so to say, and to kind of go back to what we refer to now as the new normal.
Yeah. And yeah, so same here. We were my area specifically was one of the tightest areas in the world, but
yeah,
it just shows like what happens, right? So we need to do this to keep people safe, but what about all the extra death that's coming later on from all these things, right? But I definitely digress. I saw something in the Harvard Business Review a while ago. It said that MBA enrollment is down 15%. Do you have any idea or input about why that is?
Absolutely. So we've been seeing that across the board. That's not just epidemic for that university and that particular degree. We're seeing it in almost all the master's programs. We're even seeing it in our undergraduate programs as well. And a lot of it is coming down to cost and restrictions recently on international traveling bans. So most of these universities rely on international students and a large enrollment from the international population, specifically in China. And up until recently, China still had a lot of lockdown bans that they could come here to the U.S., but there may be a possibility that if they came back to China, they either may not be able to get back in, or they would have to go into a very strict quarantine for a long period of time. And when I say a long period of time, I'm talking 30 plus days before they could go back out into the general population. So if you have people who might only have, say, 2 weeks between terms and they want to go home and see family, it wasn't feasible. So a lot of them are become very weary about coming here to the U.S. with those travel restrictions in place. Now that they're being lifted, it'll be interesting to see if some of these statistics start to change and alter a little bit. So that'll be something to monitor and kind of watch. But yes, we've been seeing enrollment has gone down, and it, like I said, it's not just there. Where I work at Northeast University, we seen lower enrollment in almost all of our programs right now. And I think secondarily, it's the rising costs. Right now in Massachusetts, Boston University, which is not even, it's a great school, but it's not even an Ivy League school. It's almost $100,000 a year to go there for an undergraduate degree. You know, and let's face it, a lot of people can't. How do you pay that back? You're going to come out into your working career almost $500,000 in debt. And if you're coming out with an undergraduate degree with that much debt, how do you even think about taking on more debt for a master's degree unless an employer is willing to step up, or if there's something, a completely different model that makes it more feasible?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen is the model is going to have to change, because it's not even those factors, right? The money, the cost is, but because of inflation, because of the rest of everything, we got this new carbon tax just came in at the beginning of the month, and gas went up 17 cents a liter, which is, man, that's about 75 cents a gallon just from this one thing. So now that just started, but that knock-on effect will happen to everything you buy because it's all transported, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Wow. And the other thing these students are seeing too, especially when you're talking master's level degrees, we have a shift here in the U.S. with employers who are really saying, I'd rather take somebody with an undergraduate degree who was a great student and do on-the-job training and provide the skill sets if they have a good person fit. So that's a big component now to employee retention. It's not just looking at the employee and saying, do you have the skill set? Do you have the personality that fits our organization, works well within our organizational culture? And you know what? It's okay if you don't have all the skills that we need, that we can teach. We can't teach your personality. And, so if you get the right person, a lot of them are starting to say, hey, we don't need you to go back for a master's degree. We're going to train you right here on the job. And this is all you need to be able to move up the ladder. So they're not requiring that for advancement or to move ahead. And with those kind of mentalities and those organizational culture shifts, it changes people's perspective on even the need to go for a higher degree.
Sure, yeah. I heard that Google's doing this with they're not just, they used to only focus on the top grades, and now they're not doing that. They want the person to be sociable. How do you work with other people? How do you communicate? And it's so important. So this all comes down to psychology and mindset.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it comes down to psychology and mindset, and it's the way we think about things, and it's understanding how that person's going to fit in the organization, but also the individual understanding what it is they're looking for and where they're going to work well in. Do you want to work for a multinational corporation where your manager may have 200 employees under them and you might not have an intimate relationship because it's not feasible with that? Is that an environment that you can flourish under? Some people can't. Do you want to work for an organization where your manager has 5 or 6 people on the team and you have all working at the same level and you're having strong communication channels and you're involved in more of the day-to-day? There's people that are going to flourish under either of those environments, but it's not everybody. So it's now figuring out what is it that I work well under and where am I going to be the best fit and where should I go? And it's also employers learning too that even if you hire somebody and maybe it didn't turn out to be the best fit right away, that there's techniques to use. You don't just automatically say, hey, I invested in you, go away. What we're looking at is, hey, let's see if we can help you grow. Let's see if there's something else in the organization. So we use job rotation, job enlargement. We move people around until we kind of find that better fit. Yes, every once in a while, there is going to be that fallout, the one person that might not make it through, but you are much better suited trying to move somebody around that you invested in and getting that alignment than worrying about, okay, this didn't work. Let's figure out where it works.
100%. I remember hearing this thing that the police officers, they would rather hire a 45-year-old than an 18-year-old. And people are like, what? What do you mean? The 18-year-old has his whole life. And the reason why was that the 45-year-old, if they haven't messed their life up by now, they're probably not going to. Yeah. But so what I'm hearing there is you're not just working with the students, which is what you're doing, but when you bring in the companies and you do that, you're also kind of training the companies too. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of them need infrastructure changes. They need strategy changes. So one of the things I focus on in my work outside of the classroom is I'm not a traditional one-on-one coach. Like, you're not going to hire me to write something or to do something for you. I'm going to come in and I'm going to educate your organization. We're going to look at, if you need a new strategy plan for the year, why are you looking to me for a strategy plan? That tells me you probably don't have the resources or the knowledge in-house to do it yourself. So let's fix that. Invest in me. I will come in. I will help you fix that. And now you've invested in yourself for the future. And so your money is better suited that way because you can grow, you can train other people, you can cross-train, but let's build your infrastructure. If you're having turnover issues, okay, I'm not going to come in and just go train your HR department. I'm going to come in and help managers identify the clues that are already there, the signals that are already there to grab these employees before they get into a disengaged state. And how do we identify it? How do we turn that around? And then I'm going to obviously work with them on the concepts of rotation, enlargement, things like that. Let's see if we move people around. Let's put other plans in place. And then we can also look at your hiring process and things like that. But we're not going to just look at this one thing in isolation because it's never one thing in isolation. It's always multiple things that have touch points on that.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. When you work with the students now, so you're lecturing and speaking. And so where I'm going here is I'm just starting to get into public speaking the last year, and I love it. It lights this fire like, oh man.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I think that must happen with you just from when we were talking off air and with the classes. But so does that, and can you speak to the speaking aspect and lecturing aspect?
Sure. So I can say this much. It lights me up and it gives me an energy like no other, because I will share this with you. I am the biggest introvert you will ever find. I do not enjoy speaking in front of other people. I get extremely nervous. If you went back in high school and found someone that went to high school with me and said, this is what she does now, they would not believe you. And it is something that I had to work very hard to overcome those fears, but it was worth it, because once I'm on that stage or once I'm with those students and I'm seeing those connections happening and I'm seeing those aha moments, those nerves go right away. And I realize the impact is more important. The things that I am giving to other people. So I made it too much about myself. Oh, people are staring at me. People are, I have this fight or flight feeling. I made it too much about me, and I needed to change my thought process and say, it's about them and what I'm giving them and what they need. So learning to read your audience, learning to know when to change things up if you're starting to lose them, learning when to take breaks, that's like critical too, because people can only sit there for so long. And it takes time. It's not something that I just woke up one day and suddenly magically said, okay, I can do this. It took a long time, but for me in the classroom, it was always about engagement with the students. I never came in with a sheet of lecture notes. I might have had a couple of words on a piece of paper that said, these are the topics that I'd love to hit on today. But no two classes are ever the same. We get a lot of content covered, but we look at conversations. If we're having a great conversation, students are drawing on their past experiences. We're talking about co-op experiences. We're bringing things in. I'm not going to stop talking about it if it's a productive learning environment. And so I also look for many ways, if we don't have projects from companies to work on, for the smaller things on a day-to-day basis that we're trying to learn, we do so many different projects. I have them build spaghetti towers and they think it's the greatest thing, and it's a competition. And what they learn at the very end of it, it had nothing to do about building the spaghetti tower or competition. It had to do about the mismanagement of resources, because I gave each team just enough to be successful, but not enough to beat the other teams. And what they really needed to see was that at times it's okay to share resources and work together. And so everything always have bigger learning moments behind them. And I take that same philosophy when I go talk on stage. Everything that I do has to be about learning something, taking a tangible step forward. I'd love you to walk away feeling great about our conversation, but I also want you to not just say, oh, that was great, now what? I want you to say, that was great, now I can do 1, okay, 2, 3 maybe even. But at least if you can walk away with doing something, that is my key goal on stage. It's all about knowledge sharing.
Yeah, the action step is huge, right? Because otherwise you hear it, you feel it, but then you forget it real quick. But if you do the action, or if you're teaching it to someone else how this works, then you learn better, I think.
Yeah. And I also learned that stages are much more complex than we think about them initially. So it's not just solely about the content that we're delivering. So I kind of break training of stages into 3 different categories. One is about having my stories, all the various stories, knowing how to pick those stories for the correct audience, having things that relate to them. That's very important. Crafting, when to place that call to action, because many times that's not in the right place. It should not be the last thing you do. The last thing you should be doing is reconnecting with your audience for a memorable moment so they remember you, because that's what's important when they leave that stage, is they remember who you are, not what you tried to sell them. And so that's always really important. So content, yes, all of that's important. But then the other components is learning how to use the stage in terms of movement. When do you go back? When do you lean into your audience? When do you choose to come off the stage? When should you move left? When should you move right? There's an art behind that. And then the third component that I work on, and I know it seems a little strange, but it is actually vocal training. And it's learning how to use your voice in a way to draw in your audience, when to kind of know to scale back and go a little bit quieter, when to raise your voice to draw in their attention, and how to use the different levels in your voice. And believe it or not, I actually work with a singing coach to learn that skill. And he originated as a singing coach, but now he is a singing speech coach. But he learned very quickly that the same techniques for speaking are pretty much the same techniques you need for singing. And so that has helped immensely.
Is his name Guy?
No, his name is Roger Love.
And that's a great last name.
Yeah, look him up because he's amazing. He works out of LA, and he works pretty much he's worked with major Hollywood stars, singers, songwriters, you name it. He worked with Tony Robbins, and he got Tony Robbins back on stage because we all know Tony has a very deep, rough voice. And at one point, that damage is there from all the years of speaking. And so at one point, Tony couldn't get on stage anymore. And so Roger actually worked with him, was able, through vocal training and stuff, to get him back on the stage so that way he could continue on.
Yeah, it would be more, but Tony, it would be more like screaming, not speaking.
Exactly.
Very cool. So when I ask everybody kind of like, what are some of your mentors that helped you? So before we go there, I want to credit your authority. So you have background in healthcare management, organizational leadership, finance, computer info systems, and management info systems. And so that just gives people more an idea about Dr. Heidi, the business psychologist. But I would love to know who are some of maybe your mentors and maybe even books that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the management space, it's, Brian Tracy, John Maxwell. I love them. I also love working with, as I mentioned, I guess I have to give credit back to Roger Love. Love working with him for those type of trainings. Lisa Nichols is probably one of the best orators that I have ever met in my entire life. Now, I don't claim to be a motivational speaker. That is not my goal, but I do appreciate her ability to orate and draw in her audience. And that is somebody that I study under. I'm actually authoring a upcoming book that's going to be launching next month with her. And so she's just an amazing individual, amazing human being. The Tony Robbins of the world. I also love Grant Cardone, Pete Vargas. These are all places that I absolutely subscribe to. A couple of recent books I'll show you. These are my most recent purchases. So I haven't read them yet, but they are definitely right up there. So this is Roger Love's book on Set Your Voice Free. Then we have one of my favorite, Tim Grover. So this is Winning and this is Relentless. Can't beat that. And then this one, never thought I'd go there, but it's actually, I started to read a little bit, it's really good, is Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. And that one's pretty phenomenal. So definitely not one that I thought would be on my bookshelf, to be quite honest, but I really, really have been enjoying that. So those are, those are my role models. Those are the people I aspire to and love to work with. I also work with Pat Quinn, who's an amazing, amazing storyteller and really is great at crafting speeches and things like that. So,
yeah, the Schwarzenegger one doesn't surprise me because you have mentors like Brian Tracy and John Maxwell. And so when you're talking about leadership, mindset, you go where the greats are. Like even
absolutely.
Yeah, like Elon Musk or not, but that's going to be a good biography to read.
Yeah.
And then I see...
I resonate with everybody and everything they say. I resonate with certain pieces. So it's interesting because some people say, well, these are really different people on different parts of the spectrum. And I said, that's okay. I love perspective. And I said, just because I like this person and I appreciate their things, there might be certain pieces that I don't particularly subscribe to, and that's okay. That's life. But there's definitely components that I really, really love.
100%. The way I look at that with a book or a conference or something, if you go and you come back with one piece of knowledge that you can use, that's it. I see a book over your shoulder. It's called Success Economy.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that is my book with Brian Tracy. I wrote that last year. We co-authored that. And in there, I wrote about not hiring your friends. And I talk from a personal experience, a hobby business my husband and I had. We opened probably about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. We had a dog training business, and I was very heavy into dog sports with my dog. COVID hit. My daughter was born. None of those things were in the plan, right? And so we ended up having to shut the business down because of COVID. Once we were able to finally restart, we decided that it really wasn't in our life plan anymore. And so we got an offer to sell the property. We sold the property. And one of the greatest challenges we had with running that business was hiring, because one might say, oh, well, it should have been easy to get dog trainers. There's plenty of dog trainers. Well, we did dog sports. And so we were looking for top tier agility trainers, nose work trainers who have to be certified. So we were very much competition obedience. These were the things that we were specializing in there. We also had a canine rehab. So you had to have either a vet or a certified rehab practitioner. And there's not an abundance of these type of certified individuals. And you could only get so many at so many times. And, we ended up going with people that I was friendly with from the field, which, because you're friends that, hey, can I, maybe move the class around, or can I cancel for this night because I want to do this instead and I'll come here. And you don't want to cause friction and you don't want to ruin the friendship. So you let a few things go that maybe you wouldn't necessarily let go. So I talk a lot about that in there, and about, while it's nice to be friendly and it's nice to have a nice relationship, but that strong friendship coming in a working relationship sometimes doesn't always manifest into the best setup for an infrastructure.
Yeah, business boundaries with friends.
Yes.
Lisa Nichols, I saw her it was February 29th, 2020. Mm-hmm. It was a leap year, and it was 2 weeks before that Friday the 13th where everybody's life changed. Yeah. And at the time, there was nothing. Like, that's how quickly it went, right? This is going good. And I remember her saying, when she got off stage, she said, now, when you leave here, you're going to have all these insights, and I want you to go out and infect the world. I was like, but there was no COVID at that time. And then 2 weeks later, right. Like, whoa. But
no, she's an amazing individual. And she was the keynote last year at our business summit. And she just told this funny story about how she always dreamed to be on Oprah Winfrey. And she talked about Oprah Winfrey's white couch. And she said, I don't know why, but all I wanted to do was sniff the white couch. And she goes, very odd, I don't know. And she goes, so when I got the call that I was going on Oprah Winfrey, she goes, I was so excited, but to sniff the white couch. And we were cracking up. And then she said, but when I got there, I was so disappointed because there was no white couch. They put out chairs for us to sit in, and I'm almost like, where's the white couch? So, I mean, her stories are just so powerful, and she's so relatable to everyone because she has a really strong story about her upbringing and overcoming, which a lot of people, can relate to because they've gone through the same struggles. But then on the other side, she has funny stories like that are relatable for people who maybe didn't go through those struggles. So she does a great job of really tying in the entire audience. And then her ability, to curate that oration with music in the background at times. And, it's just, it really is almost like artwork watching it all come together.
Artwork, 100%. She's so good at storytelling, even telling you how to tell your story, right?
Yeah.
Teaching the art of storytelling, because it's an art for sure. So
it really is. Yeah,
that's interesting that you offered the authoring a book with her. That's really good. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited about that one.
And then I do have on my notes here about the dog, because I saw the dog and I was wondering, do you guys go in dog competitions? I didn't know that it was your company, but that dog looks like he could go in and out of the things really good.
So my dog, she competed with me in agility for 10 years. She was the #1 pug in the nation for 5 years in agility. We traveled all over the place. She was the reason I started the business. I wanted to have something closer to home. I needed an underwater treadmill for her. I needed laser for her. My husband wouldn't let me buy one for the house. So there was only one reasonable alternative. We need to start a business so I can have the things that I need. And so that's kind of what spearheaded all of that. She also is the inspiration behind my children's book series, The Chronicles of Crazy Hazelnut, because she was a pug and very successful at what she did, but the breed is not known for being sporty, so to say, even though I will argue that there are many pugs out there that are very sporty and can do many different things. She really went through many trials and tribulations through the years. I was poked fun of sometimes, like, especially when people didn't know us right away. They said, who are you bringing a pug here? You know, like, we got Shelties and Border Collies. And I'm like, and then people would laugh and they said, wait till you see this dog go. And my dog could outrun a Border Collie sometimes in her prime. And so she was a big part of my life for a long time. Unfortunately, she did pass this past September from cancer. So COVID kind of shut down her career a couple of years early, and then unfortunately that happened. So we're still kind of healing from that. But you know what? The memories and the journey that she brought me on and the lessons that I learned from her are just, they'll stay with me forever.
What was her name?
Hazelnut. Crazy Hazelnut, as people like to refer to her.
Yeah. I know the feeling. It's, I had 2 golden retrievers. I have 2 new golden retrievers, but we had 2 golden retrievers, and it's so sad, right? Because they become like your best friends and family, and like, they don't judge you. They don't care what your hair looks like. They just want to be with you, right?
I know, because it's like everybody knew her as, outside the house, knew her as the pug that does agility, the amazing sport pug, and she had quite the reputation. She had her own Instagram account. But what they didn't know is at home, she was just our dog. She was my shadow, my companion, literally sat with me through countless hours of classes and trainings, laying in her bed next to me at my feet, you know, sunbathing at the door, and just follow my little shadow all the time, and my best friend. And that's the part that's important. Like, I will trade every ribbon in the world, every accolade that she earned, you know, just to have her sit next to me again and just, you know, have that companionship.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote a eulogy for my dog, and I think I did it for me, obviously, more than to share it with my friends, but it helped me to heal a lot, like a lot. So, yeah, now we got 2 new ones, and they're just, they're nuts. It's awesome. Though. I don't think I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
So I guess as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share. Reach out to Dr. Heidi if you want to know more. And I think I always ask everybody this question. This is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6th phase, meditation by Vishen Lakhiani, is all about creating your future 3 years out. So where's Dr. Heidi 3 years from today?
Well, 3 years from today, my goal is to have a new higher educational model out there being a disruptor in the education space. I hope to have a new therapeutic modality working where we're integrating traditional and non-traditional psychiatric modalities together to help serve more people, and to bring that into a hybrid model so that way we can serve people all over the U.S. rather than just in one physical location. So that's in that area. I hope to be on many more stages sharing my knowledge and building my VIP business network, and just supporting through networking events and knowledge sharing and all the great things we do in the network, just having more small businesses and nonprofits be part of that.
That's amazing. I wanted to, maybe can we go into what is non-traditional?
Sure. So a couple of examples of non-traditional modalities. One great example would be there is a group down in Tennessee. They're singer-songwriters, and they come up, and what you end up doing is, and you can do it over Zoom too, you share your stories with it. They started first with veterans who are suffering from PTSD, and then moved on and realized it can really help anybody who went through any type of traumatic situation. They share their story. So just sharing their story alone is already therapeutic. Processing it, understanding it, working through that. And that can take multiple sessions. Then they go back to their studio in Tennessee and they make a song out of their pain, out of their trauma. And then that song comes back and becomes part of them and their therapeutic process. And just kind of working through stuff like that. We also have other people who do a lot of things within the arts. And so within that particular realm, we have one person who really focuses in for people who suffer with like ADHD and things like that, who have processing neurodivergent, who have processing disorders, and really need to figure out how can I quiet my mind so I can focus on certain tasks. And she really focuses in, for her, it's stone painting, but she works in the broader concept of let's figure it out what that thing is for you, because that's not going to be the thing for everybody. But what can we get you that you can work on, why you need to be in a moment of concentration and quiet your mind and quiet those stimuli down a little bit. And then even locally, because it will be a hybrid model. So locally and hopefully we can set this up in different locations through the US, but like therapeutic horseback riding, that would be another alternative modality. So anything really with the arts, animals, anything where they can let out expression of emotion, so to say, and be able to not hold it in, but be able to process it.
Yes, I love that. So I got two ways there. So a friend of mine in Virginia does the same thing with young kids. She goes in, okay, so this is kids who they're not going to be recidivism. They're on the edge where either they're going to come back or they're going to end up just keep going back to jail. So they take them out and they use music like that to tell their story, to show them an art thing, to show them that it's not just whatever you saw. Like, we can change it. In Norway, or one of those Scandinavian countries, they have the system for young offenders. They can either go to jail or they can go to acting school. And what they do is they throw them back into like Shakespeare or some kind of play where they have to put on a costume and then they have to be someone different. And the reason they did it, they said that these kids just are repeating the same thing because they don't know anything different. But the second you give them that confidence to step into it, it changes. And then the animals. Animals is huge. I facilitate mental health groups for chronic pain, anxiety, depression. And there's one lady in there who she has rabbits, and that's her thing. Like, she needs to go and be with the rabbits. She knows when her anxiety is rising too high, and this is how she deals with it, right? And the animal will know. The animal will tell you how you're feeling without even, right? So that's the intuition. That's why we just flow with it, because
animals are amazing creatures. Like my dog, if I was sitting too long, she would know I needed to get up. She would literally come and paw at me, and I would take her out for a walk. And I'm like, I needed that in my life. Otherwise, I'd probably be glued in my seat for, 12 hours a day trying to crank out content. And I was like, she like brought me back to reality. Like, okay, we need to go do something else now.
Amazing. One of my last things I want to ask you is, have you ever read a book called Blue Ocean Strategy?
No.
Okay, because you said the word disrupt a couple times, and that's what it is. It's all about disrupting industries where the whole pond is full of redfish, and you want to be the blue fish in there. So
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's cool. They talk about the way, like, some of the best innovations come from outside the industry. Like, somebody went to a different industry, saw what they were doing, and said, how can I adapt that to mine? So very, very cool. Before I ask my final question, I always like to let the guests take it wherever they want. So if you have something to sell, sell it. If you have a message of hope or inspiration or just anything, let us know.
So the only thing I would throw out there, if anybody would love to come check out my VIP network, you can jump on my website, drheidigregorymina.com. It's the first thing you'll see on the homepage. And I have a special code. It is just simply JP. If you put in JP as the code, you will get $10 off your membership for life. So right now it's $29.99 a month. So you'll get it for $19.99 a month. And we do about 12 different events every month, and we're growing.
Amazing. So thank you for that, first of all. And then my last question is always, how can people reach you? You just said it, but maybe one more time.
Sure. So Dr. Heidi GregoryMina.com is the best way. And I'm on all the social medias. Usually on social media, I'm at Dr. Heidi, keeping it pretty simple. So you'll see me on Instagram and Facebook with that, and on LinkedIn with my full name, and you'll be able to find me.
Amazing. Dr. Heidi, I am so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thank you. I loved it. Thank you for having me on.